Now that you've opened the file provided, we're going to learn how to colorize this picture non-destructively. Now, before we do that, I do want to show you a really cool filter that comes with Adobe Photoshop. And you're going to go to Filter, Neural Filters. These are kind of newer filters that are sometimes beta and plug-in, but they do some really cool, amazing stuff. Now, you need to download the filter that you want to use. So it takes a few seconds to download, but what I'm going to do is, since I already downloaded it, is I'm going to go down to Colorize and switch it on. Through the magic of Adobe, you now see that we have a colorful document ready to go. So we now have a colorized image. Where this seems really great, if I hit OK, I don't really have the option to edit this image. It kind of gave me just a flat image. So what if my client comes to me, which they always do, and say, hey, I wanted a blue book and this person have green eyes. Well, I can't change that. This is kind of destructively edited. So where it's really cool and it can work for a lot of different circumstances, I wouldn't suggest it for, again, the proper way to do it. Now, what happens in the future with this tool, who knows? Maybe it will create all these fun little things. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that layer and drag it to the trash can. And we're going to start by doing it kind of the quote unquote old school way. And we're going to use layer masks and adjustment layers. So follow along with me. And we're going to use all different types of tools to create this final look. So before I do that, I'm going to do some housekeeping. I'm going to drag with my left mouse button the little lock symbol, and I'm going to call this backup. I always like having a backup layer. I'm going to drag that backup layer to the little folder here at the bottom, and we're going to call this, again, backup group. Then I'm going to drag the backup layer one more time to this new icon. That gives you a layer copy. So now, if I double click on that word, I can say start here. This gives me a really good starting point. If I mess this up, don't worry, check that out. I can turn the eyeball on and I have a backup ready to go. All right, so now that we have our backup, let's go ahead and do a quick save. And we're going to save this as a PSD version 1. And we're going to hit OK here, and we're good to go. All right, now our goal is to isolate a lot of these objects. So I'm going to hit Z, and then I'm going to tap my space bar and hold it down. And I'm going to isolate this book. So to do this, I could do this 10 different ways, but I'm going to start with a tool called the Lasso tool. If you hold your left mouse button down on the Lasso tool, you can have 3 different Lasso tool options. The regular Lasso tool, which is like an organic drawing tool. Let me hit deselect here. And then the polygon lasso tool, which you can just click. Again, when you close the shape, it creates the selection. Deselect. Or the magnetic lasso tool, which is a really cool tool that kind of sticks to pixels and can be fun if you know how to wield it. Let's deselect that. I'm going to use, in this case, the polygon lasso tool. So I'm going to do a series of left clicks to select this book. So I'm going to go through and just, again, select just the parts of the book. Now I picked this tool because I have a lot of straight lines on this book. And I'm going to close it up here at the bottom. There we go. This is going to give me what we like to call marching ants. If this menu is in your way, do not fret. You can just kind of click on this little white bar and move it out of the way. Once you have a selection, though, if I click on the Start Here layer, I can create an adjustment that can help me color this in. So I'm going to go to my adjustment layers, which are right here in my panel. And you can see that if initially when you click on it, you don't see what I see. But if you scroll down, you're going to see all of these different ways to adjust the image. Those can also be found here up in Layer, New Layer. Again, adjustment layers. If you don't see any of these, you would go to Window and make sure the adjustments box is checked. If you still don't see them, go to Workspace and reset your default workspace. All right, we're going to start at the top of the list. We're going to simply do a hue and saturation, which is just essentially a fancy word for color and how gray it is. So once I select that, you notice my selection went away. But what happened was this actually created a mask. What a mask is in Photoshop is it's isolating a specific area. Anything that is pure white will be revealed to the viewer. Anything that is black will be hidden. So I'm not really painting on this. I'm actually just revealing a color within this white box, and everything in the black box is being hidden. I'll click on the little icon next to it to kind of access some of this panel, and I'm going to hit colorize. Now, you can pick whatever color you wish, but go ahead and pick a color of your choice for the book. So I can select, in our case, let's see, maybe like a red book. And I'm going to play with the saturation. So all the way here would be gray. All the way here would be very, very, very bright. So we're going to kind of meet in the middle a little bit. And then we have lightness, which can really wash out an image, and darkness. But I think I'm going to keep that lightness filter in the center. So now, through really quick methods, I have a red book. Why is this more important than the neural filter way? Well, if I messed up or my client said that book was green, I just go, oh, cool, we want to make it green. Got it. And we can just create that panel. So again, I'm going to hit Control Z to undo what I just did, but now I have a very nice book selection ready to go. So moving forward, let's play with some of the other settings. Let's keep on the lasso tool, kind of keep this kind of down and dirty. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to select just kind of the hair area. There's a lot of ways you can do this. Again, most of you may be beginners to this, so I'm kind of using pretty basic, rudimentary ways. I'm going to just kind of go through, and I'm not going to worry about these flyaways. Again, that's a more advanced tutorial. We're just learning how to use some of these tools. And I'm going to go and I'm left clicking and I'm highlighting and I'm creating a mask around the hair. Now, this mask is obviously pretty linear, meaning it's really sharp in nature. So when I go to my adjustment layers, and we'll use hue and saturation again, it's going to create a mask if I hold Alt that looks like this. But when I select the mask, I get properties to adjust that mask. So one of the properties is feather. So here I'm going to crank my feather property and just blur it, because one of the things that work on masks is anything that's grayish will kind of be semi-transparent. So this will allow me a little softer edge to work with. All right, we're going to colorize this, and we're going to give her somewhat brown hair, and we're going to make it, and we don't want to make it like overly dyed, but we're going to kind of make it as realistic as possible, maybe a little bit darker. Again, don't worry about the flyaways. But you know, one big thing that wasn't colored in, you may notice, are her eyebrows. So the cool part about masks is I can add to the current selection. So here is essentially the mask I had. That's the hair. If I want to add these to be brown, all I would do is select that mask, and I'm going to go to my brush tool. My brush tool is B on my keyboard, and I have a lot of different options here at the options menu for the brush tool. And I'm going to paint white where I want to paint. Now, if your brush is too big or too small, hit the bracket keys next to the letter P. Look at your keyboard, then go to the right and hit those bracket keys. That will make your brush bigger or smaller. Now, the big piece of advice here is you want to select this little screen. So you definitely want to be in the mask when you do this. You get your brush tool, you get your mask, you click on your image, and then you're going to just brush over those eyebrows. Now, you could select these really nicely, but again, we're going to fix the face tone in a few minutes. But now that we have that ready to go, you can see what we added. We just added a little bit of tone. Now, if I hit Control Z and undo this, we could also get our brush tool and turn the opacity down, and that will give us a little more, make sure we click on the layer, that will give us a little more softer color, so it won't be as aggressive. What I'm doing here is really just painting gray. And if I click Alt and left click my mask, it's just a little bit grayer than the other elements. So not too bad. That looks pretty good. We're at a really decent starting point right now. All right, the next step is I want to do the same thing with the face. So what I'm going to do here is same thing, get my tool, and I'm going to go through and we'll soften this a little later, but we're going to select all the visible face area. That looks great. And one of the things that I'm going to teach you right now is what if I want to subtract an area? Because I do not want to make the eyes skin tone. So if you've drawn a lasso tool, you can actually go and select the lasso tool again, and you can hold your Alt key down. Your Alt key will subtract whatever area you draw out. So again, I'm just kind of going through and hitting Alt, and that's going to remove that area. That's really helpful because again, we don't want these eyes to have like a skin tone feel. We want to keep them kind of white, and then we'll adjust the color of the eyes in a few minutes. So there we go, and that just removed the area. So if I hold Alt, I can remove the area. If I want to add an area, I would hold Shift. It makes a little plus sign, and you just would kind of go in. And this is pretty good because you can be kind of rough with it. Highlight the area you want to add, and it will add it in. So Shift or Alt, if you're on a Mac, that Alt key would be your Option key for you to go. Okay, same thing. Let's go to Adjustments, Hue and Saturation. We'll just keep it simple to start. And we'll hit Colorize, and notice it didn't take any of the nice masks, or it kind of looks funny, but we have like this kind of range here, which we can feather a little bit just to soften. And now we can play with the skin tone. There we go. Brighten that up. And all of a sudden, we're getting a really nice look. But oh no, I didn't name my layers. How will I know which is what? So before I get too in depth, I'm going to name that one face. I'm going to name this one hair and brows. And then I'm going to name this one book. And again, these are really easy ways to kind of get started with this method. Let's go ahead and add the eyes. I can add the eyes with maybe our elliptical marquee. So if I grab the left mouse button and go to elliptical marquee, I can go ahead and draw a circle over the eyes. And if I hold that Shift key, I can add another circle. Great. They don't need to be perfect. Again, we're going to, we may decide once we make our mask to kind of blur that out. And we're going to go ahead this time, well, let's add a curves adjustment. So just something different. And so what I did was, it's kind of creepy, but I made these little white circles. And with that curves adjustment, I can double click and call it eyes, just so we remember, or eyed, I can't spell. There we go. And here I have the ability to adjust some of these options. Now, before I do that, I do want to soften this a little bit. So I'm going to just pull the feathering out quite a bit and go back to the adjustment. The RGB, this is a curve that deals with the brightness and the contrast or the darkness of the image. So if I pull it upward, it makes it bright. If I pull it downward, it makes it completely dark. Wherever I click and put a dot on the image, it will play with a gray value within that range. So now that I have that made, what I can do is, instead of just playing with the RGB and the brightness, if I click the drop down, I can play with the color that I want to choose. So if I want to give her blue eyes, I get the blue curve, and I click once on the curve. Oops, clicked a little far there. Go to the blue curve again. And when I click on the curve, I get a little dot, and I can adjust. And so I can put as many dots on this as I wish. And the more over the line we go, the bluer it will become. Below the line, the more green it will become. So again, pick the eye color of your choice when you're following along here for your submission. And I think we're going to just kind of keep this a little bit in the green or hazel territory. So not too bad. I can go back up to RGB. I can make those a little brighter. I can go to green, and I can make them even more green. It's almost like twilight looking. So we're going to kind of just be safe there and pull that back down. But now you can see we have pretty natural looking eyes, on, off, and everything's coming together. This is looking awesome. Okay, well, the very last thing we want to play with is this background. How do we get that background looking the way we want it? So we have a lot of different tools. Let's look at the selection tools. So we have the object selection tool. We have the quick selection tool. We have the magic wand tool. Let's try the quick selection tool. And I suggest all of you try these. Well, that kind of grabbed everything, including the head. Let's try the object selection tool. Well, that's not really letting me grab the background here, is it? So when I drag, it says, nah, we can't find anything there. I could use things like the paintbrush. I could use things like the lasso tools again, but why not use some of my pre-existing masks? So how do we do that? Well, we know we have the book selected, and we know we have the hair and the face, but what if we can use the object selection tool and we can select the objects. Now look what this tool is doing. This is actually really amazing. When I hover over something, it recognizes with AI that it's an object and it's two different objects. So if I click on the face, great, it's going to select that face. But the cool part about this tool is just like the lasso tool, if I hold shift, I can add that other object to the scene. And now both of these are selected. How cool is that? So I held shift down to do that. I'm going to go to start here, and I don't want to fill in this, but I want to fill in outside of it. So I'm going to do selection, inverse, and that's going to select everything outside of that. I'm going to go to my adjustment layers, and I'm going to play with any of the adjustments that I see fit, whether it's color balance or curves, you name it. I'll hit curves just to show you that one more time. And I'm going to select a color, and we're going to go ahead and start mixing our colors and having some fun with it. So I can go back to that main RGB just to bump up the contrast or the lighting. That's really cool. Now, if I wanted to pull different colors into this, I totally could. And so this is a little bit of an extra over time kind of technique. So let's name this background. But I could go in and I could, let's see. We could create, hold control, click on that layer to select it. We could go and make another adjustment layer, maybe with hue and saturation, and we'll hit colorize. We'll add some red in there. And then now we get our brush tool. We use our bracket keys. And remember, whatever is white will show up, but whatever's black will be hidden. So if I switch my brush to black, I can kind of go through and just soften some of those areas. And I'm painting just with gray here just to kind of be see-through, but I can turn my opacity of my brush higher. Oops, always click on your mask. And we can just kind of have more of a natural backdrop to our scene. So this mask is going to look kind of funny, but it gives you an idea of what we're creating. So in a matter of a few seconds, we've non-destructively fixed this image. You want a green book? Great, make the book green. You want her to have different color hair? Awesome. We can kind of make her have the fun colored hair that you wish. The idea is it's non-destructive and we have a backup. So we're going to go ahead and just be clear. We're going to save that as a PSD. It's going to tell you at the bottom that it's saved. And now let's export this for submission. So I'm going to do File, and we're going to do Save as Copy. Save as Copy, we're going to name this what we want to name it with our file. So looking at our assignment sheet, we want to name it first name, last name, colorize. So I'm going to name that on mine. And we're going to select the file type with this drop down to PNG. If you do not see PNG, you need to make sure you save as a copy. All really important. So I'm going to hit save there, and we're going to go ahead and replace, and we're good. We're going to get this little flyout menu. Don't fret, just hit OK on it, and you'll be all right. And then the final step is I'm going to use a tool like the snipping tool. Any way you take a screen grab is up to you. I use the snipping tool. There's probably a hotkey, Window Shift S. If you're on a Mac, it's Control Alt Shift 4. Again, whatever you're comfortable with. And I'm going to just take this and I'm going to screen grab my layers because I want to make sure that I'm naming my layers appropriately. And we're going to name this first name, last name, color layers. And you're going to submit those two files to your web course. Now, feel free to have some fun with this. We want to try to make it a little photorealistic, but you can change the eye color, the book color, the hair color, the background color. Again, we're shooting for kind of pseudo-realism. You're welcome to use any of the adjustment layers that you wish. Again, as long as you're using your masks coupled with that non-destructive editing. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. If you have any questions, again, this is why we have these videos. You can pause, you can rewind, you can stop, but you can still feel free to reach out to me for office hours. I hope you enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see you starting on the right foot using non-destructive editing. Thanks, everybody.